Hey folks, today's episode of WTF is sponsored by NTSF SD SUV, or National Terrorism Strike Force San Diego Sports Utility Vehicle. That's on Adult Swim. Catch an all-new episode tonight and every Thursday night only on Adult Swim. Do it!
Lock the gate!
Are we doing this? Really? Wait for it. Are we doing this? Wait for it. Pow! What the fuck?
WTF.
And it's also, what the fuck? What's wrong with me? It's time for WTF. What the fuck?
With Marc Maron.
Okay, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers? What the fuck buddies? What the fucktarians? What the fuckstables? What the fuckabees? What the fucknicks? And what the fuckeristas? Come on now. It's Marc Maron. This is WTF. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all the emails, both positive and negative. I like going through them. It's like a speedball. Like, hate, love. Yeah, it's okay. I'm happy to hear from all of you. I'm glad the show is having an impact or an effect or whatever you want to say. I hope everybody's well out there. Today on the show, Rob Riggle, of course, from the Daily Show, and now he's going to be on the new show on Adult Swim, NTSFSDSUV. You've seen him around quite a bit. He's an interesting guy. I've met him a couple of times. Stand-up dude, a funny dude with an interesting story. Actually served in the military. I don't know in my mind, other than Jonathan Winters, that we've had somebody on the show that has served in the military. And Rob's story is very interesting because he was going to be a lifer. So you'll hear him talk about that. And it got me thinking about the military and about my past and about my feelings about that, about service, about people who serve. I guess my earliest recollection, I may have talked about this before years ago. I'm not even sure I did on this show. But my earliest recollection of war and of military service was probably in the mid to late 60s when I was 4 or 5 years old watching TV. There was a lot of war footage from Vietnam. I remember the news reports. I remember seeing graphic images, body counts. I remember body counts. I remember military funerals. I remember actual footage from reporters in the jungles of Vietnam. I remember the protests. I remember the hippie movement. I remember the outrage. I remember all the images. Of course, I didn't have a context for them when I was that age, but I remembered them, and the effect they had on my head sort of defined my head in some odd way. It was very powerful. And I remember my father was in the military. He was in the Air Force for a couple of years. We were stationed up in Alaska, and we would go back east to visit my grandmother, and both sets of grandparents, and we would take these military cargo planes because it was part of the deal. You could hop a cargo plane, and I can't remember which way it was going or whether it was going both ways, but it was probably going east. But I remember we would sit along the sides of the planes in these strap-in seats. We'd have a box lunch. I remember it was the first time that I ever tasted V8. I remember it was dark and it was scary. And I remember going in the cockpit and being shown the radar and everything. And then I remember the cargo. The boxes were long rectangular boxes. And I was told on one of those flights that those were caskets. They were the pre-casket casket. These were bodies of American soldiers going from Vietnam to wherever they were going to be buried. And I remember it being horrifying and scary and sad at that time. And I remember it having an impact, but still not completely connected. But it made it eerie, but I never quite understood it in my soul, I don't think. And then as I got older, when I was in high school during the Reagan years, there was a time there where we had to register for the draft. We were asked to register for selective service. And I freaked out because I'd become somewhat of a reactionary, or I modeled myself after that. And I'm like, I'm not going to fight a war that I don't necessarily believe in. I'm not going to fight. Yeah, I'm going to resist. That's what I learned to do. I gravitated towards that reactionary disposition. And I remember registering for selective service and writing all over the registration, conscientious objector. But I think in retrospect, if I'm going to be honest, I was probably just scared out of my fucking wits at the idea of being drafted. And I believe that that's a reasonable fear. I don't think I was alone in that. And I've never had the opportunity to perform for the troops. And quite honestly, it's not that I don't think I could do it. I've never made myself available for it because I'm a self-involved guy. My life is not, it's not a general life. I'm fairly introspective. I'm heady. I just don't know that I would be the right entertainer for the troops. I'm no Bob Hope. And certainly I've had some weird moment the other day around my feelings about service, about military service. I've always respected it. It took me a while to realize that no matter where you stand on the conflict at hand or where you stand about the war or where you stand about whether it's right or wrong or anything else, that there's a military. There needs to be a military. It's an all-volunteer military. And these are special people. There's no fucking way around that. But I don't know that I felt it as deeply as I did. I think it was last week. I was watching President Obama award this guy, Sergeant First Class Leroy Petrie, the Medal of Honor. And this guy had a prosthetic right hand. His legs had been shot to fuck. He'd done many tours in Afghanistan. And there's a story around why he got the medal, aside from all his service. But he was in a firefight in Afghanistan, and he was with two other guys. A grenade was thrown literally 5 feet in front of him. One of the guys was injured. He was injured. He ran out. He had a tourniquet on his arm that he had put on his arm himself. He scrambled out with injured legs and an injured arm, picked up this grenade, heaved it out of the way. It blew up elsewhere and saved himself and these other guys. And he's accepting this award, and he's got a prosthetic hand. And there was a handshake with the president. And I had this moment where I'm watching him and I'm trying to understand, who does that? Who does that? This is not an average person. This is something beyond anything I can understand. Not just the service element, but the self-sacrifice of it. There's part of me that thinks immediately like, well, he's just one of those guys. He's like, fuck them. I'm going to win this. I'm going to be a hero. But then I realized that wasn't it. Some people are just wired for service, but they're also wired to be warriors. But this was real self-sacrifice. And this is an all-volunteer army. And I was moved at that moment in a genuine way because Obama went out of his way to make a point that this is the spirit of America, the essence of America, the spirit that says no matter how hard the journey, no matter how hard, this is a quote, that no matter how hard the journey, no matter how steep the climb, we don't quit. He said that. But this was a situation. He's talking about self-sacrifice, and certainly this Sergeant Petrie was beyond anything I could understand, and certainly was one of only two living people that received this honor. But there was something in the moment where Sergeant Petrie saluted Obama, and there was something in the way he saluted, and there was something in his eyes that transcended politics and everything else, any sort of argument that was going on within the Capitol, any sort of argument that was going on about the war. It transcended all of that, and it was about duty and service, and he was saluting his commander-in-chief. It didn't matter who it would have been at that moment, and it was just bigger than anything I could quite fathom at that moment. And I started thinking about the idea of an all-volunteer army and the positions. I've talked to soldiers. I have soldiers that listen to this show. And I know that a lot of them are like, we know what we're getting into. This is either a job. We understand the parameters of the job. We may not be, our feelings about the war are irrelevant, but we're signing up for this. Whatever your intentions are, you know what you're getting into. But this is all volunteers, and there has to be some gratitude from us to these soldiers, in the sense that who the fuck would do that? It's an amazing thing to have that ability, to have that kind of self-sacrifice and that type of loyalty and that type of tremendous balls to volunteer to do that. Here I was, a fucking teenager, frightened at the possibility of being drafted, would never think about going into the war, but god damn it, we need people out there doing that. And it was moving to me in that moment. Because Obama's talking about self-sacrifice. We don't live in a culture of self-sacrifice. Even that thing he said, about, we will rise to the occasion. Because a lot of us don't have a choice. The idea that this is the spirit of America No matter how hard the journey, no matter how steep the climb, we don't quit. That's a collective we, but a lot of people don't have a fucking choice. It's just the shit they're in. These guys volunteer to get into the shit to defend the country or to fight in whatever conflict they are needed in. You know, I'm not a self-sacrificing guy. I will sacrifice for self, but actual self-sacrifice for the better of the bigger is rare. And I don't know how many truly self-sacrificing people I meet. I mean, the best thing I've ever done is this podcast, and occasionally it moves people. But Jesus, I was just blown away at the fortitude of this guy, this Sergeant First Class Leroy Petrie. Jesus Christ. He's one tough dude. Hey, gang, I know maybe you remember a couple weeks ago I told you to watch Children's Hospital on Adult Swim. Well, now I'm telling you to watch NTSF SD SUV. Holy shit, what the fuck is that? I know, right? Well, it's actually a spin-off of Children's Hospital, and it stands for National Terrorism Strike Force San Diego Sport Utility Vehicle. If you've been watching Children's Hospital from the beginning, you'll remember the fake trailers for NTSF, and now it's actually a real show on Adult Swim. It's created by Paul Scheer, who you may remember from his appearance right here on this show. He was in this garage. If you don't remember Paul Scheer's interview, here's a reminder.
My mom took my Weird Al Yankovic in 3D album and broke it over her knee because a song was on there. It was called Nature Trail to Hell, and it was on one of the devil worship lists that like the church had given them. Like, these, if your children have any of these albums, and one of them was a Weird Al album, you must find this and destroy it.
She destroyed it in front of you.
Yes,
and
that and my LL Cool J album.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and it was terrible. I was crying like, no, my Weird Al album. Like,
did you ever tell Weird Al that story?
I did, actually. I got to tell Weird Al that story, which was awesome, and a great full 360 there.
Oh my God, how did he respond?
He just thought it was insane because the song is called Nature Trail to Hell in 3D, about going to a drive-in to see a horror movie called Nature Trail to Hell in 3D. Like, there's nothing satanic about Weird Al Yankovic at all. Like, in the greatest stretch of the imagination, but
like, that might be Satan.
It might be.
You never know. They're very cunning. He's charming,
and that's it. That was
very
Weird Al.
Funny. Yeah.
Satan comes in Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah. So that's Paul Scheer, and NTSF SD SUV is his show. He created it, and he's in it, along with Martin Starr, Rebecca Romaine, Kate Mulgrew, and our guest today, Rob Riggle. It also stars Sam, the first sentient robot on television. Yes, the first. They play a team of government agents, and this is what their job description is, according to the notes I got. Quote, saving your ass so you can drive your Prius and see your movies in 3D without worrying about living in a country run by no-good terrorists. Unquote. Adult Swim promises that every episode is filled with suspense, action, drama, cliffhangers, yelling, passionate lovemaking, more yelling, death, and plenty of pregnant pauses. NTSF SD SUV premieres tonight, July 21st at 12:15 a.m. on Adult Swim. Do it. In the garage here at the Cat Ranch, Mr. Rob Riggle.
Hello.
The man, the myth.
Yes.
You know, I don't know how much you talk about it. And, I've watched your work on The Daily Show, on SNL and other places as much as I can. Right. I don't consume as much media as I should, so I come at these things sort of blind. But I know you worked with my friend Janine Garofalo.
Absolutely.
A few times.
And I've been very lucky to do some stand-up gigs with her around the country. Yeah, I love that.
And I had talked to her about some event in Somerville, Massachusetts, where you guys were playing in Davis Square, I think maybe at the Somerville Theater, and she got accosted by Fox News reporters.
It was. I thought it was just some angry Tea Partiers. I didn't know it was
right. Or no, I don't know if well, maybe that was the story.
Yeah.
Right. And they had come to protest.
Yes.
And she walked out to all that shit, and she said, I talked to her about it a couple of times. She said she felt safer that you were there.
Well, I think she maybe wanted me to do more, to be honest. I think she probably wanted me to, like, come at him sideways and be like, go fuck yourselves. And I just didn't, because she's a tough girl.
She can handle herself.
Exactly. She doesn't need to be. But I did want to be around her in case these guys were crazy.
Well, yeah, there's that, and she also brings that out in me too. Like, you feel protective of her almost immediately.
Yes.
But now, what would have happened if it got ugly?
I would have beat some ass. I guess, I mean, obviously, I'm a very peaceful guy, but if you attack a little,
right?
She's what, 5'2",
right?
She's tiny.
Yep.
And if they would have done anything physical to her, I mean, I don't think I would have hesitated.
Because unlike anyone I've ever talked to in here, and I've talked to about 150, 160 comedians. Yeah. I don't know any of them that are active Marine Reserve.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty small little fraternity myself.
But I mean, what does that mean? I mean, now, like, you could get called in tomorrow?
I could, technically. I don't think it'll happen.
Right.
Because
why? Because
I've already been called back. I've already been called back once.
But you could just say, I'm Rob Riggle. I mean, you want to see my movies?
No, but that means nothing to them.
Right.
Honestly.
Elvis Presley was in the force.
Absolutely. Active. The government, the Marines especially, they could care less. They're like, you're a funny guy, huh? That's wonderful. We need you over here right now.
Well, when did you join?
I joined when I was 19 years old.
How old are you now? Honestly?
Honestly?
Yeah.
I'm 40.
Okay.
And I joined when I was 19, and I was in college. I was at the University of Kansas. I was a theater and film major, but I had my pilot's license.
From what? From when you were young? You didn't train in the military? You just had your pilot's license because you. When did you get that?
I got my pilot's license when I was in college, and
what do you mean? Just went out and started taking flying lessons?
Yeah. I was very fortunate. My grandfather was a farmer. In Missouri, and he. I think he wanted to be a pilot in World War II.
Okay.
He was in the Army Air Corps in World War II.
Okay.
And he, for whatever reason, he was either too short or I don't know, something happened that he couldn't fly.
Right.
And so when I became of age, he came to me and he said one day, he goes, do you want to learn how to fly? I was like, yeah, why? Sure, why not? What are you saying? And he's like, I'll pay for you to get flight lessons if you want to fly. And I said, I was a young man. I was like, yeah, I want to fly. Deal, done.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So I was up in Lawrence, Kansas, and they have a little airport out there with a little Cessna, and I took lessons, and I got my pilot's license. And I started flying around, and it was a great date, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Yeah, take a girls.
Really?
Yeah. You go. You want to go out to dinner or whatever, and then after dinner, I go. It'd be fun. You want to go flying? And they'd go, what? And I go, yeah. Take a flight around campus at night. It'll be fun. It'll be nice.
And you just drive out to the field?
Drive out to the field, go out, prep the plane, and then I'd make it look way more hard than it was.
Yeah. Did you do that thing where it's like, I'm just starting out here? I don't know.
No, I wanted to look as professional, as expert as I could.
You went that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to fuck up the possibilities for
because if you went out there and you did I don't know what I'm doing, they would literally go, well, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. Yeah. I thought maybe when you were already up.
Oh yeah, I'm already up.
Can you just give me the handbook?
Yeah. Well, there was one thing because it was an uncontrolled field. So
what does that mean?
That means there's no air traffic control. So it's when you're flying around that field, it's just you talk to each other. The pilots talk to each other.
Like, what do you say? Like, are you going in or should I?
Yeah,
or
like whatever
your
call sign. So if you're like November 7 Foxtrot, I'm left downwind for runway 33.
Right.
So if you're a pilot and you're flying around the plane, you know where runway 33 is, and they're left downwind, so you know where to look for them.
Okay.
So
it's just but you eyeball it.
Yeah, you really do. And at night, because there's nobody there to turn on and off the lights, you as a pilot turn on the lights with your microphone
at the airport.
At the airport, so you click your microphone 5 times. And it's like this oasis in the desert. Just whoa, the runway lights up, the taxiway lights up, all the.
So that was the big closer. That's
so that was. I'd be like flying. I don't know where the airfield is, baby. And I go here, and I hand her the microphone. I go, why don't you click this 5 times?
Yeah.
And look right over there, and then they do it, and then the whole field would light up. And
I would think that would transcend any sexual possibilities. How are you going to follow that?
Yeah.
How's a kiss going to be the same?
Yeah, and I always fell short.
Yeah.
Come
on. Nah.
I could. You would be surprised. Something like that you would think would be a pretty decent chance for young men don't have game for the most part. I didn't.
You had a plane.
That's the best. I was like, this is all I got.
Yeah.
And I still many times did not.
Couldn't close the deal.
Couldn't close it.
Oh my God!
Yeah. And I was weak-willed. I was like, do you want to kiss? Nope. Okay, good. That's good for me. I'm out.
Weak-willed. You're a Marine.
Well, again, I was a young man. That's why I joined the Marines, so I could get my shit together.
Oh, really? Is it a completely in the, not forgotten country, but for pussy? But okay, so you grew up where in Kansas?
Yes, Overland Park, Kansas.
And what does that look like?
It's a suburb of Kansas City. It's just a very nice suburb of Kansas City. Kansas City kind of falls right on the state line of Kansas and Missouri.
Yeah.
Split down the middle. Kansas City, Missouri has like the downtown, all the sports complexes, the Chiefs, the Royals, all that. Kansas City, Kansas, not so much, but there's a real nice suburb called Overland Park, Kansas. And so I grew up on the Kansas side of
Now, was your dad a Marine?
Nope. No,
nobody was a Marine.
Nobody was a Marine. The only person, my grandfather, was in World War II.
So, what you were studying in college when you decided to join? Now, what was there? Some, I can't put time and date in my head. What compelled the decision?
I was a theater and film major, so that means I was going to be a waiter upon graduation.
Right.
Because you just don't graduate as a theater and film major and then go become an actor.
Okay.
You can study acting.
Right.
You can try to get gigs or
right.
try to get a job, but you're not going to get paid anything.
But you were just like an actor guy?
Yeah.
You were just, I'm doing, you're doing your...
Well, I was a humorous guy, too. I mean, I was voted most humorous in my senior class in high school.
What plays did you do in high school and college?
I ended up doing weird, random Frankie and Johnny. Little things like
right.
that. Nothing too.
Right.
I was never Shakespearean. Please.
Did you do any singing?
No.
Musical theater?
No. The only singing I ever did was at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. Matt Walsh put on a Halloween show, an annual Halloween show called Kilgore.
Right.
And it was just a bloody mess. The whole point was just to be as disgusting as possible.
Yeah.
And one year they decided to make it a musical. And I sang in that, and it actually went okay. I wasn't too embarrassed.
Well, that's good. I mean, I was trying to unearth a secret thespian past where you did Bye Bye Johnny or one of those.
I matter of fact, I had an audition recently where they wanted me to sing, and I didn't go in.
Oh, because of fear?
Because I can karaoke, drunk karaoke with the best of them.
Yeah.
And
what's your song?
I usually go Neil Diamond.
Really?
To be honest.
Which one?
Any of them. Cherry Cherry. You can't go wrong with a lot of Neil.
Sure,
Neil
it's pretty simple. The vocal range is within.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the crowd, it's a crowd pleaser. So
yeah.
So I go Neil usually.
All right. So there you are. You're 19 years old.
Yeah.
You're an acting major, and you're like, all right, the Marines, the hardest thing that a person could do, and the commitment. And I don't know where does that fall around the first Gulf War, 89. What year was that?
It was 90. I was actually at officer candidate school in the summer of 90. I was actually on the parade deck. We were drilling, doing close order drill. Like you see marching around, left shoulder, right shoulder, and the bugle sounded, and our drill sergeant goes, "Freeze! Everybody freeze!" So we were like, we don't know what the hell's going on. We don't have watches, we don't have newspapers. We're in total information dark. And the horn blew, the bugle blew again, and this look, drill instructors are mean and they're surly, and they know everything about everything.
Yeah.
And I saw a look of somewhat panic in his eyes, and it was a little chilling, to be honest with you.
And you had no idea.
And I had no idea. And he said out loud, he goes, "If that horn blows again, we're going to war, boys." And we were all like, I didn't know what he meant, and I was like, I still don't know what's
drill.
Yeah, I was like, I'm expecting any minute to get yelled at, so I'm just afraid. I'm just like, whatever, just let me get through this.
Yeah.
And then a couple days later, we were in one of our classes.
So it did blow again.
No, it didn't.
Okay.
But we were all like, oh, geez, I don't know what the hell that meant. I don't know what's going on, but we didn't care.
Well, you're not allowed to watch television on the day?
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because this is boot camp. This is,
There's no television at boot camp?
No,
Oh,
God, no.
that is fucking awful.
Oh, no, there's a lot of nothing at boot camp. I mean, anyway, so but we were sitting in a class, and one of our instructors said, "Has anybody ever heard of the country of Kuwait?" And, everybody raised their hand, and he goes, "Well, it doesn't exist anymore." And so we were like, "What?" And then he explained to us what had happened. And we were like, "Holy, that's what it was about." And so then we started putting two together.
And then what happened, though? Did you go?
No, I didn't, because I was still in undergrad, and I was just going through officer candidate school. Now, a lot of the guys that were prior enlisted Marines.
What is the difference? I mean, officer candidate school means what? I mean, is that something everybody goes through when they join the Marines?
No. There's two different things. There's
Right.
boot camp, which is for the enlisted Marines. Okay.
Okay.
That's Paris Island,
Right.
San Diego. That's what you see like in Full Metal Jacket.
Right.
That's where they go to turn you into a Marine.
You didn't do that.
No, I did a different version of that. I did officer candidate school.
Okay, so
Which
you were
is-
trying to get in. You were trying to, break in at the top.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I was in college and I was going to go, when I graduated, I would get commissioned as a second lieutenant, provided I could get through OCS. Now, boot camp is miserable. It's a hard, miserable experience.
That's for people who are like, you're either going to jail or the Marines. What do you want to do, kid?
Yeah, that could be definitely a possibility.
It's not for necessarily college educated people.
Well, no, but a lot of college guys go through there. I had a sergeant work for me who was a graduate of Michigan State. He had an accounting degree from Michigan State, and he was working in a cubicle one day, and he literally looked around and snapped and just said, "Oh my God, this is my life." And he walked out during lunch of his job, which was like Arthur Anderson.
Yeah.
And walked to the Marine recruiting office and signed up and just said, "I'm going to join the Marines. I don't care what happens.
I need some discipline."
I'm just getting out of here. I got to live my life."
That's
And
pretty
so-
exact. That's extreme.
Yeah. Then he eventually went on to become an officer later, but he enlisted initially. But what happens is, if you sign a contract with the Marines,
Yeah.
As an enlisted, if you just enlist in the Marine Corps, they're
Right.
going to make you a Marine,
Right.
Come heck or high water, because
Right.
they got you for 4 years. They're
Right.
Now, if that means you have to go through boot camp twice to get down to weight,
Right.
Get your weight under control, or to be able to do the amount of pull-ups you need to do, or to learn how to do close order drill, or learn how to fire your weapon, they'll send you through boot camp twice if they have to.
Yeah.
They're going to make you a Marine.
Right.
Officer candidate school is different.
And you're just hoping for no Leonards.
Yeah, exactly. You're really hoping for that. But officer candidate school is a little different because you have to go to them and say, I want to be an officer. And they say, okay, well, come and try out.
Right.
And then you go, and then they're trying to get rid of you the whole time. And
So you should be in pretty good shape already and ready to do anything.
you got to be ready to go. My platoon started with 68, and we graduated 34, 50% attrition.
Now,
right down the
were you
middle.
in good shape, or were you? I mean,
Yeah, I was in good shape.
and you were prepared.
I was as prepared as I could be. You're never truly prepared to be, sleep deprived and scared and hungry and not know what the hell's going on.
So you didn't go in out of a sense of service necessarily, or
No,
or,
I did. I'm a Midwestern kid.
Right.
I'm a pretty patriotic guy.
Yeah.
I really do. I know a lot of people look at this country and they like to point out our shortcomings, and we have them. I'm not saying we don't, but there's a lot of good things too, man.
Yeah, we're sitting here in my garage making a podcast.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of really wonderful things about this country, and I know, but that's the wonderful thing. We're always trying to make a more perfect union, and
Right.
So it's a work in progress, which is a wonderful thing. So there's a lot to be proud of, and a lot of good things. So I was honored to serve, and I'm glad that I served. I have no regrets. And there's also something, I don't know, maybe there's something in the male psyche about that question of, can I hack it? Can I do it? What would I do in that situation?
Sure, and you opted for the Marines as opposed to prison, which is good. You're going to learn whatever you need to know.
But yeah, I wanted to know if I could do it.
But I think there's something very commendable in the action of anybody that agrees to serve. That there's a selflessness that is really unusual.
Yeah.
I think in general. In the American culture right now. I mean, this is a culture sort of, dedicated to narcissism and getting what you want. And the actual, for whatever reason, because a lot of people say, well, the service is different now. You're really, it's not, because the nature of the conflicts we're in are not necessarily like the ones in even Korea, or I think that Vietnam sort of changed the game a little bit, that your loyalty is really to the Marines and to your fellow soldiers, and that, whether or not you agree with what's going on or whether you understand the politics of it, that's really not the issue. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's become difficult for people who serve, in the sense that they've sort of had to adjust to the fact that there is not necessarily a national momentum behind what they're doing.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. There's, if you look around, who's fighting these wars? It's not America. It's
Right.
America's military.
Right.
That's who's fighting these wars.
And
I mean, it's business as usual around here. I mean, people were pulling their hair out because the Lakers got swept.
Right.
Yeah. We're dropping bombs in Libya.
Right.
We're fighting battles in Afghanistan and holding off these IEDs in Iraq. I mean, we got people dying and getting wounded every day, but
every day.
Nobody around here knows it.
Well, where did you serve when you did your tours of duty?
As far as overseas, I served in Liberia, Africa. Went over there and helped secure the embassy there. And then I went to.
See, like I didn't even know there was a problem there.
Yeah, there's a civil war going on in Liberia, and it spilled over into the capital city of Monrovia.
Right.
And it was threatening the U.S. Embassy. There was, people shooting, and we have a lot of allies, a lot of designated third country nationals that we had to evacuate as well, i.e. Japan. They don't have a naval and marine force that can come pull up off the coast of Liberia and get their people off. So we got evacuated our embassy, and then we also evacuated our allies.
Now, but was there a moment when you were doing that where you're like, no, we got to go back for the Japanese guys?
It's like, these Belgians are killing me. Really? We got to go back and get the Belgians? What did they ever do for us?
Right.
But yeah, so, but that's the deal.
Was there shooting?
You get your orders. Yeah, there was. And then I served in Albania.
What was going on there?
It was when the Serbs had drove into Kosovo and were bombing and driving all the ethnic Albanians
under
out
Clinton.
Yes, yeah. They drove everybody out of Kosovo.
That must have been gnarly. I mean, it was bad there, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was really bad. And we had a huge humanitarian crisis. We had a lot of refugees. All these these ethnic Albanians that had been driven out of Kosovo, driven from their homes, were massed on the Macedonia border and on the Albanian border. And we went in and we tried to help with that humanitarian problem because you've got hundreds of thousands of people just stranded on the border.
Right.
No shelter, no plumbing, no,
Wow.
So we went in and we built all these refugee camps.
Right.
And then and with our allies, it wasn't just us, but there was American camps, British camps. And,
right.
And then we said, okay, come on down, guys. We've got food and showers and bathrooms and medical and everything you could want. And we're here to help. And they all said, no, we're not going.
So you built all this shit and no one's coming.
Well, no one's. At first, they were like, we're not leaving because when they left their homes, they left on their tractors and they loaded up their wagons with everything they have, and they weren't about to leave it at the border, unattended.
Right.
So
because it's all they had left.
That's all they had, and we're like, well, this can't go on. So we came to a kind of sort of understanding where women and children come on down to the camps, men, you stay with your gear, so to speak. And that's pretty much what happened.
And then
then we kept bombing Kosovo. We kept bombing the Serb army in Kosovo, and eventually the Serbs said, no mas, we're out. So they pulled out. Now, when they pulled out, you couldn't leave a vacuum of power. So as they pulled out, the Allies pushed in. Mm-hmm. So we literally they would be backing out of a street as we were coming up the street.
Really?
Yeah, because
you saw their tanks and trucks leaving.
Absolutely, face to face with them as we came in because you couldn't leave because the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army, was up in the hills and they wanted some payback. And it was just a very dicey situation.
So you didn't know where it was going to come
right,
from.
and then the Serbs that were left behind, the Serb people that were left behind,
right,
that were civilians, they were afraid for their lives for retribution from the KLA.
Right.
And, it was one of those things where we had to disarm everybody and protect everybody.
Oh, my God.
And nobody trusted anybody. So everybody's shooting at everybody. It was chaotic. Yeah.
And what was your rank?
I was a captain at the time.
And what does that mean? Who's under you?
First lieutenant, second lieutenant, and all the enlisted.
And above you is
major, lieutenant colonel, colonels, generals.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were site manager.
Yeah. I was a public affairs, civil affairs officer, which means I dealt with information. I dealt with media. If Christiana Amanpour one day showed up at our base and was like, I want to go see what's going on down in this town. I want to go see what's going on here.
And you said, do you want some coffee?
Yeah, exactly. I said, load up. I, put her in a Humvee and we went, and I would take her to wherever she wanted to go on the battlefield. Because if they're unescorted, a lot of times they can get themselves into trouble.
Right. But were you, so you weren't really directing troops?
No, I didn't have direct command of any troops.
Okay.
But I worked as support staff officer. Because you have a ground combat element, you have an aviation combat element, you have and combat service support.
Wow.
And then you have a command element.
Uh-huh.
And I was always usually part of the command element.
Were you
for the command?
So when someone like Christiana Amanpour wants to see stuff, do you say like, well, what kind of tour do you want?
Well, the thing is, like, we're not in the business of denying anybody. It's just it's a courtesy thing where she'll come in and say, hey, I'm probably gonna go do these things, and I can say, well, there's a minefield over there, so don't do that. Or I could say, if you want, I can take you down there and introduce you to the commanding officer of that town or whoever's in charge of that particular section.
Wow.
And then, make the proper introduction, so to speak.
And did you did you end up in Afghanistan?
Yes. Yeah. And then
and you grew in rank?
Yes. So I get a guaranteed flight contract. I take this test called the AQTFAR. It's like I don't know.
Which means you'll get to fly planes?
It's like an SAT for planes.
Right.
All right. So I took that and I scored high enough, so I got a guaranteed flight contract. So
that's what you wanted to do.
That's what I wanted to do, and I figured, I'm either going to be a waiter upon graduation or Top Gun, so I'm going to do that.
And you might be able to be a commercial pilot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could lead to other things. But I got into flight school, and I was going through flight school in Pensacola, and then I went over to Corpus Christi, and I was continuing flight school, and I was getting close to getting my wings. And what I realized was when I pinned those wings on, they got me for 8 years. They own me.
Yeah.
I'm done. That's it.
Because they put a lot of effort into
absolutely,
you.
a lot of money, a lot of training. And I was like, you know what? If I pin those wings on, that's it. They got me for 8 years. And at the time, I was a young man. And I thought, that's my whole life. And I'm never going to get a chance to act or try comedy.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't sitting well with me because if I tried comedy and failed, I could live with it. I wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
But I could live with it. But if I didn't try it, I would always regret it. And
Yeah.
I knew that. Even then, I knew that.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm not going to fly anymore. I'm going to be a
comedian.
I'm going to be a comedian. And, you can imagine how that went over. I mean, everybody in my flight class, my commanding officer, my girlfriend even, my parents, everybody's like, you're an idiot. What the fuck are you thinking about? You know? And I was like, I can't describe it. I just know that I have to do it. Uh-huh. And I've never made a big, bold-ass decision like that in my life.
That's a really bold-ass decision.
It was. And I'd never done anything like it. But
you're about to take control of a plane.
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're flying off a ship at night.
Yeah.
You got to love it, man. You got to be passionate about it. And all the guys in my flight class, we'd go out at night and they'd be talking with their hands, helicopters going, so I was coming in and doing this, and they'd talk about the day's previous flight or whatever. Yeah. And I'd be like, let's go meet some girls. Look how that guy's dressed like a shithead. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And and those guys loved it and they were passionate about it because it was their dream.
Yeah.
And my dream was to do comedy and to be an actor and do comedy.
Right.
And so it got to that point where I had to make a decision, and I did. And so the Marine said, well, if you're not going to fly, you got to do your ground commitment. And I was like, fine, done. So
how long was that?
That was 3 years.
Okay.
So that's fine with me. I was like, deal. So I went to Defense Information School. I became a public affairs officer. Then they sent me out to the fleet. I sent me to North Carolina. While I was in North Carolina, I went to school at night, so I stay out of trouble because it's very easy to get in trouble, In
North Carolina?
Absolutely. Especially as a single man, you just, So I went to night school.
Yeah.
I got a master's degree in public administration while I was there during that time. And then I was done. My time was up. I'd served my commitment. All my contract was fulfilled. And I said, peace out. Thanks for the memories. I'm going to Chicago.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be a bartender, and I'm going to study at Second City because that's what Belushi did.
Yeah.
And fuck it, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I even moved my stuff into a storage unit in Chicago. And I was ready to move. It was all done.
Yeah.
And I was calling friends. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
And the Marines came to me and they said, well, what would it take for you to stay in the Marine Corps? And I said, well, nothing. I'm going to Chicago. It's funny time.
Yeah.
And they said, well, what if we could get you to New York City or Los Angeles? And I said, if you can do that, I will stay in. I will extend on active duty I'll sign another extension for 3 years. And they said,
that's not a reserve thing. That's
it's a active duty thing. So I'd still be on active duty, but it's not like being augmented where you become a lifer.
Right.
It's just an extension.
But do you have to wear the uniform during the day?
Oh yeah. Because you're full-time active duty.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not reserve. You're full-time active duty. So I said, I'll extend for 3 more years if you can do that. Next morning, they called my bluff. Orders to New York City. So I was like, well,
where's the base?
It's not a base. It's a little office right there on 3rd and 50th, right above Smith and Walensky's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, deal, because I figured
and they're putting you up.
Yeah. Well, I was a captain at the time, so they give you what's called variable housing allowance. So for whatever zip code you're in, they have some sort of government actuary who figures out.
Yeah.
So I moved to New York City, and I got a little studio apartment, about this size, 350 square feet.
Size of the garage.
Yeah, 350 square feet, sight unseen. I just got it, moved up there, and started. The first thing I did, I went out to the comic strip live on Upper East Side.
It was on 81st.
Yeah, exactly.
Second.
Yeah. Because I lived on 75th and Second. And I went up there, and they said they taught classes. And I was like, well, this is it. So I went in and I took a class. And I took a class, and
Yeah.
he had a lot of great things to say, but
Yeah.
his style of comedy wasn't what I envisioned.
What'd you envision?
I envisioned storytelling,
Right.
a la Bill Cosby
Sure.
or Eddie Murphy, because
Right.
I saw Delirious and it changed my life.
Yeah.
And
That was your moment?
that was my moment. That's when I was like, because I spent years quoting that,
Yeah.
and I just thought I just loved the journey he took me on.
And you stayed for the whole class.
Stayed for the whole course.
Got
and
on stage.
got
That means
on
at the
stage
end you got on with your
stage.
jokes.
Yep.
That
and I
he,
did
he cajoled you into writing short jokes
short jokes, and I did 5 minutes.
in front of an audience at the
front-
comic strip.
Yep.
A lot of free tickets.
Yep.
Bridge
But a
and
pretty
tunnel.
good house, pretty
Sure,
good size, because
sure.
the class brought in a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
And how'd you do?
I don't remember any of it. I literally just got up, and it went fine. Like, I saw the tape later.
Yeah.
And it went, like, people were laughing and enjoying themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was, my pulse, real fear. Real blackout fear, where I was like, and I know, like, I'll attack a hill,
No,
but I honestly, it's a different kind of fear. It was really exposing yourself.
Sure,
to,
it's the same fear
to
of
some
singing.
heavy judgment, yes, and
Heavy judgment.
and it's also a dream that you're like, oh God, I hope this works. I mean, it's just, and then the more you think about it, so I went up and I did it, and it went fine. But I remember when it was done, I remember thinking, I hated that. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it.
Why?
Because it just didn't feel right. I wasn't doing my comedy, which was storytelling, and I hated the fear, and I hated that anxiety, and I just hated it.
Of heading towards the stage.
Yeah, and I was like, and I remember thinking I made a colossal mistake. I have no business in comedy. I got no business.
oh, really?
Oh yeah, and I
But you're
remember,
still in uniform, though.
Well, yeah, but
You could have made up for it.
Yeah, I could have, but I didn't want, and I'm not. I don't like to quit.
Yeah.
I hate it. Matter of fact, the only thing I've ever quit in my life was fly school. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I
And
mean,
that was to
even
do
like
comedy.
even things that I hated, I
Yeah.
still would see it through at least till the
Because,
end.
why?
Oh, because I don't know. Somebody told me a long time ago quitting is a bad habit, and and I bought into that. I really did. And so
You still believe it?
I do. I mean, I think I'm more.
Does this go with relationships
I'm more
as well?
measured.
Are you married?
I am married.
How
I
long
am
have you been married?
12 years.
And how long are there before?
But I'm lucky because it's effortless.
Oh, good.
It really is. So that's not a struggle. It's not. I'm not sticking in that because
No.
someone said-
I was curious how long you went with her before.
Oh, just about 2 years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we've
And
been
you
together,
know.
I think, total 14.
So you met her after you made the decision to be a comic?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I was moving from North Carolina to New York.
Yeah.
And I hadn't used any of my leave, and I had to use it or I would lose it.
Right.
So I was like, all right, I'll take 10 days, and I went home to Kansas City to see my family.
Yeah.
And just hang out, play golf, see some old buddies, whatever.
Yeah,
Dicking
yeah,
around
yeah.
for 10
Yeah,
days.
sure.
And that's where I met her, back home.
And you didn't know her when you were younger?
No.
Just a coincidence?
Yeah.
Where'd
just
you meet her?
A friend of mine who's a girl, I called her and I said, hey, I'm back in town. Let's grab a beer. And she had a boyfriend at the time,
Uh-huh.
but whatever. And I said, well, it's all. And so she's, oh, great. And I'll bring a friend from work. And I was like, is she cute?
Yeah.
And she was.
Uh-huh.
And we hit it off like gangbusters.
And you had to break it to her that you were quitting the Marines and not going to be a pilot to pursue comedy?
Exactly. Well, at the time I was still in the Marines. So I was like, oh, I'm still in the Marines.
Right.
I'm going to New York. And
Yeah.
and did all that. But anyway, so where was I? So
you had a horrible time at the comic strip, and you hated the fear and anxiety.
right,
And
I
it
remember
wasn't what you wanted to do.
I called a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Or a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Was Dave Koechner.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have a friend who was friends with Dave Koechner.
Right.
And my friend said, call Dave. And I said, oh, I don't know. That's kind of weird because he doesn't know me from a hole in the wall, and I'm just going to be this schlub who's.
Yeah.
But okay, I did it because I'm not going to quit. And so I called him and I said, here's what happened. I hated it. Da da da.
Did you say it like that? I don't know what I'm going to do. Did you cry?
In my head, that's what it sounded like.
You gotta help me, man.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
And Koechner was great. He's like, dude, relax. He goes, you're just starting out.
Yeah.
All right. He goes, go. I have some friends from Chicago who have just moved out to New York, and they're doing the basically Second City, like Improv Olympic, all that stuff that they did in
So
Chicago.
it's Besser and Poehler and
Besser, Poehler, Walsh, and Roberts.
Yeah.
And
that
it's
was
called the Upright Citizens
the
Brigade.
original one on was it 22nd or something? It was
Well,
the
yeah,
one-
that was the original theater, but this is even before that. This is when they had just had rented a space at Solo Arts.
Oh
down
yeah,
on
upstairs.
18th, yeah, the fifth, those rickety old stairs.
Yeah.
So I went and I saw their ASSCAT show on Sunday night. And that was it, man. I was like, that's it. That's it was like honestly, like the clouds had parted, the light hit me, just like Blues Brothers,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's it. This is it. This is what I want to do. So immediately I went up afterward and I said, hey, I'm taking classes and that's it. And I got into the classes. They had 3 levels at the time.
That's so funny. The difference between what I picture sitting with D.F. Sweedler, being told to write one-liners that are efficient, and then walking into whatever Matt and Amy and Ian and Matt had going on. It just must have been like, this is alive.
Yeah. It was. It really had a sense of and I was so amazed at how they were playing so well together, and they anticipated.
And you're team sport kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, stand
the ensemble made sense to me.
Right. You know how to work with people.
Yes. Yeah, it did.
You weren't one of those guys where it's like, fuck people, I just want a microphone. That's what scares you. It's like, I need support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they were serving the comedy. They weren't serving themselves in any way. It was just. I don't know. I just watched it. I was blown away. So I took all the classes.
Yeah.
And I spent the next 7 years taking classes or teaching classes or doing lights and sound for other people's shows or coaching younger teams or whatever.
But you're still in uniform here.
I was
for 3
of those years. And then.
Did you ever perform in uniform?
No.
Out of respect for the uniform?
Yeah, a little bit. And also, basically that. And also, I always kept those 2 worlds as separate as I could.
You didn't talk about it?
I did. I mean, people knew what I did. I mean, I was like, because I would go to
you
work.
You must have been such an anomaly to them.
Well, a little bit. I mean, it would be one of those things. Oh, did you hear about Riggle? He's doing yucks down there downtown somewhere, And I don't want to explain it to him either.
But on either side. I mean, you must have been an anomaly in both worlds. Like,
and you're right about that.
You're not going to tell the Marine guys that you're doing stand-up. You're not going to tell the stand-up guys that you're Marine.
Yeah.
So
they knew I was in the Marines right away because my haircut. I had 2 white walls.
But did they know you were active?
Yeah, they did. But they were all really respectful of it. Like no one was.
Well, you must have been good.
Well, maybe I don't. But they.
I'm not saying that there's a fundamental disrespect for the troops. Obviously, everybody respects the troops. But the idea that I could just see that there must have been some nervousness on some level. Like there's a Marine taking classes.
Well, when I would. You try to fit in. I don't think anybody walks in and says, "Fuck you, I'm a Marine. I'm going to do this." I would.
A character.
I would grunge it up. I'd grunge it up. I mean, I couldn't hide the hair and it had to be clean shaven. But I would, I'd put on a baggy flannel and I'd whatever. And then
I like the whole idea of a double life that you couldn't tell either side what you were really up to.
But I did try to actively keep them separated because. They're 2 different hats, when you put on, especially if you're an officer, you don't want to be acting like a jackass because people are looking to you for answers and you're the responsible adult in the room and you have to conduct yourself in a way that.
So was there a fear that you would get caught performing?
No. In fact, it got to the point where I invited people from the office down and down to shows and stuff. Yeah, but improv, improv too.
Sure.
It's one of those things where it's hit or miss,
right?
Especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have great shows, you'll be like, "That was magic," and then sometimes you'll be like, "That was the worst piece of shit I've ever been."
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah,
and those would be the nights I'd invite people down to, and they'd be like, "Keep at it, Riggle. Keep working at that."
Nice hobby.
And I'd be like, and then you're constantly in the defensive where you're like, "Fuck off! It's really funny. It's good. Leave me alone. It'll be good."
Why don't you guys see that?
Exactly.
Damn it.
Exactly.
So now what? How do you?
Okay. So then at the end of that 3 years, the Marines said, "Okay, it's time to go to your next duty station," and they wanted to send me.
But you were supposed to be done.
Well, if I wanted to stay on active duty, let me put it that way. If I wanted to stay on
but you took the deal to New York, and that was a 3-year deal.
And I did those 3 years.
Okay, now you're 3 years into improv too.
Yep. And my contract's up, and they say now if you want to stay on active duty, you got to go to a new assignment. And I said, well, no, I'm not leaving New York. So I left the Marine. I left active duty.
Right.
And then I joined the reserves.
You joined that on purpose.
Yeah, because you're automatically in the reserves, whether you like it or not, when you leave active duty for at least 4 years.
Really?
Yeah. Now it's inactive ready reserve, meaning you can grow your hair long, you can grow a goatee, you can do whatever you want.
You're gonna have to take it off when they call you.
Yeah, exactly. And it also means you're not going to be called unless it's a time of national emergency.
Right.
So it's you're basically out. All right, but they keep you on the rolls in case someone nuked New York.
Right. So,
and they needed a quick call up. They could go back and they could reach back to everybody who's been out for the last 4 years and say, "You're still in the IRR, individual ready reserve. You're coming back."
And you
on
just
active
decided duty. For what reason did you decide to go ahead and join the active reserve?
Well, because it was 2000, pretty peaceful. It was
So you figured,
yeah, I was in. I had 9 years in.
And if you join active reserves, there's a benefit to that. You still get paid, or
Yeah. You still get a retirement if you do 20.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'm 9 years in.
Yeah.
It's peaceful, and I do my drill days. They're not that hard.
Right.
It's not bad. I'll do it.
And I'm still doing my theater.
I'm just not interfering with my comedy. So I was like, done deal. So then 9/11 happens, and my reserve unit is in Manhattan. We were the only reserve unit in Manhattan. So we were activated on September 11th. That night, I got a call from my commanding officer in my reserve unit saying, we just got orders, report to ground zero tomorrow morning. So September 12th, I was down at ground zero.
Holy shit.
In uniform, working on the bucket brigades, moving rubble by hand.
Right. This is on the 12th.
This is on the 12th, from the 12th to the 18th. I worked on the bucket brigades on the northeast corner of Tower 1.
Just that smoldering heap of horror.
And it was 6 stories high.
Yeah.
And the smell was unforgettable. It was pulverized
it smelled
concrete.
Like burning metal.
It's burning metal, but pulverized concrete that got wet, and then it would be turned into this paste. And it was
because I was there.
And it was moon dust. You remember the moon dust effect? How fine that powder was?
It was horrendous. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Astoria, Queens when the second tower went down. I went to my roof.
Yeah.
And I just remember going into the city once you could finally get in, and that smell was around for it felt like months.
Yeah, it was, and it would get in your nostrils too. Because I lived right around 44th Street in Manhattan, and when the wind shifted, it would blow right up into our apartment.
It was almost like a chemical smell.
Yeah, it was an awful. But I worked down there from the 12th to the 16th. Moving rubble by hand, 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
Just the horror of it when you saw family members.
It was a very tough time. For everybody. Everybody.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was in shock.
But at least I considered myself in a weird kind of way lucky, because if you remember that time, we had just been really sucker punched, and everybody wanted to help. They wanted to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that feeling?
Sure.
What can I do? What can I do?
Sure.
Everybody had it. And I felt kind of lucky because I was able to do something. I was helping.
Yeah.
I was working.
Yeah.
I was moving stuff, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, just doing it.
And what was going on at that time down there? I mean, I know it's so right after, but I mean, was there panic? There was so much panic and chaos, or did they cordon it off?
There wasn't panic down there. I'll tell you, on one of the early, like maybe 13th or 14th, we were afraid that other building, the one that it looked like a big claw, had just gouged out the front of it.
Yeah.
I forget which building it was, but there was a fear that it was going to collapse.
Yeah.
But we had to keep working because we thought it was still search and rescue at that point. It wasn't search and recovery at that point. So we thought there might be survivors. So you got 6 stories of rubble. You're trying to move all the stuff by hand because you couldn't bring in the heavy equipment.
Right.
Yet because you didn't want any cave-ins, and we were still thinking rescue.
And you had no idea what was going on inside the rubble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were moving things by hand. We dropped listening devices down there. Everything they call for silence. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, you talk about hardcore working, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Someone would blow a whistle. Nothing. Just absolute silence. And then they'd sound the whistle, the all clear, and everybody go back to work. Well, there was one time down there that they sounded like an old air raid horn, and everybody took off. I mean, like ants running off a hill. Just everybody ran off the rubble piles.
Military and otherwise?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Firefighters, anybody, any worker down there. Because they thought the building was going to collapse.
Oh, and it
was going to come down. So that was the only time that I felt any panic down there.
Did it collapse?
No, it didn't collapse. But like I remember, as I turned the corner, there was a light, one of those mobile lights set up that come on a trailer.
Yeah.
For the night work, and the trailer hitch was sticking out, and my legs got pinned up against it, and people started pushing behind me, and for a minute I thought they were going to break my legs because just the wave of people behind me.
Right.
And I couldn't get my legs out. And thank God I was big enough that I just elbowed back and kind of just gave myself enough room to get over it.
It's a good thing to do at concerts, too. So how long did you spend down there at Ground Zero?
The 12th to the 18th on the piles, from the 18th to September 30th in one police plaza, helping to coordinate military and civilian efforts like cadaver dogs or anything we can do. Why
you have any health repercussions from
I don't think I do. I mean, I've always been kind of conscious of that, like I check every now and then, but
I feel all right.
I have pretty good respiratory. I feel all right. And then after that I got called back to active duty November 10th. I remember because it was the Marine Corps birthday. And I reported on November 17th to Central Command down in Tampa, Florida. And on November 30th, I was in Afghanistan. So 20 days from the time I got my orders, I was in Afghanistan.
There wasn't even a defined mission, was there?
Well, when I got there, we hadn't even taken the southern part of the country.
And this is when your rank changed?
No, my rank changed at the end of my tour. When I was done with my year tour,
Yeah.
I went from captain to major. And then just 2 years ago, I went from major to lieutenant colonel.
Wow. So what was going on in Afghanistan that first? I mean,
I went over and was working with the 3rd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group in Mazar-e Sharif up in the north. And they were working with the Northern Alliance. And we were, just securing the country, taking out the Taliban, taking out Al-Qaeda. And we hadn't taken the southern part of the country yet. And then eventually,
what was your job then? I mean,
civil affairs and public affairs. Again, working for the commanding officer.
But shooting, right?
No. I mean, I had my weapon. I had my weapon out a couple times, but no shooting.
And that was the last tour you did?
That was the last tour overseas. Yeah.
And was that hairy? I mean, or was it mostly trying to unify, find some front of support there?
Yeah, I mean, we the Northern Alliance, they had hated the Taliban and Al Qaeda for a long time. So,
but it's like it's almost ancient tribal warfare.
Yeah. But we teamed up with them and got rid of the Taliban in the north, which helped set up, the eventual securing of the South.
Now, in retrospect, you're still in. Mm-hmm. You're a lieutenant colonel now.
Yeah.
I mean, now how do you react to the swirling left? I mean, I did Air America for years. I'm a lefty, but like 9/11 was an inside job. Bush was and Cheney were the Antichrist. I mean, do you just stay out of the dialogue or what?
I honestly, a lot of times I do because
you served under Clinton. I mean, you're a military guy.
Yeah, so I can actually say that Bush sent me to war, Clinton sent me to war.
Right.
It's
So that's it. So you just honor the service in the country.
Absolutely.
And it's not.
You don't want your military to make their own decisions. Trust me, you don't want that. You want civilian leadership of your military, and if your civilian leadership says go, you go, and if they say stay, you stay.
So now, how long do you stay on active duty? You're just going to keep letting it ride out? You're going to do the 20?
I'm going to retire next year, I think.
Because you're doing all right.
I think now I feel fine. Now I can retire.
So after Afghanistan, you come back and you go back to the UCB?
I got back in 2002.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the UCB, kept working. In 2004, I got on Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was very fortunate.
Now, when you audition for something like that, when you're sitting there with Lorne Michaels, I've been through that process.
Yeah.
You told him you were a Marine, right?
No, I didn't tell him. I think maybe he might have heard or maybe he knew.
Did he ask you about it?
No. Lorne asks weird questions.
I know he does.
He doesn't ask regular questions.
What did he ask you?
He asked me if I dyed my hair.
Uh-huh. Did he make you look him in the eye?
No, I mean, he was nice. He wasn't mean or he just asked random questions. That's all. I mean, he was polite to me and I thought we had pretty nice dialogue and stuff, but.
And you were on the show for a year?
Yeah. Just
Why did that stop?
I never got a good answer, but I did have someone over there kind of talk to me about it because I by most people's account, I had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
But,
right. Yeah. You did a lot of
stuff. But I think what it was this is what it was explained to me. I don't know if it's true or not. So take it all for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But they had a big cast, 14, 15.
Yeah.
And I was the only guy hired that year.
Right. So you're the first.
Usually, if you have a freshman class, you get, 3, 4 guys, gals. You kind of come in with a group of other people.
Yeah.
And you
were just the one guy.
I was one guy. One new guy hired that year. And it was an election year.
Yeah.
Which usually in election years, I think SNL gets a big ratings bump.
Yeah.
Because people check back in with the show and they want to see how they're going to do the debates and all that stuff. And for whatever reason, I think 2004 was just a real shitty election, and I don't think people were really jazzed about it. So they didn't get quite the bounce they wanted. So I think last one in, first one out. I think
yeah. So the Marine had to go.
Yeah,
but you've done other stuff, right? I mean, it wasn't like you just didn't go out and come out of nowhere and do Saturday Night Live. You did. What did you do before that? Weren't you doing bits, sketches on Conan?
Yes, yeah. I was very fortunate because the casting director for Conan O'Brien would come down to the UCB and see us do shows. Yeah. And so I got invited to do a bunch of bits on Conan, and it was I never got to do stand up on Conan, but I would go do any bit. I was always a security guard for him, or I'd play Tarzan, or man in the audience, or
big guy.
Yeah, big guy, or some jerk, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were always fun little bits. And so anyway, but that happened before SNL. Then I did SNL, which was a dream come true. I have no regrets about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and it might have been the best case scenario. Get in, get out.
Sure.
You know? So I just love
It's
it.
broken some people.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. I still talk to some people who were on the show they can't let it go. They're just
Oh, really?
Yeah, still
They talk about it like it's nom.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm like, move on. It's all right, man. And yeah, that's the thing about show business too. Like I was so naive. I don't know. I didn't know anything. I was very green.
Yeah.
And so when I got on SNL, it's one of those things where you're like, ba-boom,
Yeah.
done and done.
Yeah.
Now I just sit back and let it all happen. And what you realize,
won.
when you realize when you get shit canned, is, the show business is not. There's no finish line.
No.
It's you go from gig to gig.
Yeah.
That's all you do. And if you get a good gig, you hope you do it for a while.
Yeah, you have to stash a little cash enough to get you the next gig.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you choose a life of show business, if you're getting into it for any other reason than love of acting or love of comedy, it's a fool's errand.
Yeah, yeah. And that's because there's no quitting with you. So when you got canned for Saturday Night Live, you didn't even think.
Oh, I honestly, that night, I remember I got the call and I was like, they said, they're not going to pick up your contract. And I was like, it hurt. I'm not going to lie. It's all those feelings of self-doubt and this, that, and the other.
Back to the UCB.
It's over and, oh God, and the embarrassment and
Embarrassment.
I was embarrassed because I could have, in my mind, I feel like I could have done better. I could have done some things different.
Isn't that interesting? Because I feel that too, and I think that when you talk about outside of that stand up wasn't for you.
Yeah.
That one of the reasons we do this is it's to control embarrassment. It's to fight off embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like if we can make people laugh in that moment, we're not embarrassed. We're winning.
Yes.
But that moment that they're not laughing, or that moment where you're like you don't have control over your comedy,
that flop sweat.
Fuck, dude.
Oh, it's a lonely, cold feeling.
Well, that's the fear. Yeah. I mean, you could be up in the mountains of Afghanistan. Yeah. You're not going to be like, am I okay? Do I look all right?
Does everybody love me?
Yeah.
Everybody good? No,
but the other thing, huh?
Yeah.
Holy fuck! So you felt embarrassed.
Yeah, I was just and I was disappointed in myself a little bit.
It's a public thing.
It is a public thing,
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's a high profile thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was my first thing, my first real thing.
So what did you summon up in yourself to carry on? Give me some Marine tips.
Well, it's the self talk. It really is. I immediately got off the phone, sat there, felt sorry for myself for about 30 minutes.
Holy shit! I made a career out of that for 6 years. Didn't work.
But then after that, I was like, well, you start asking yourself questions. Like, well, what are you going to do now? What's it going to be? What are you going to do?
Right.
Because if you take it, then, I mean, what are you? If it sounds like a locker room pump up talk, but you have that conversation where you're like, all right, let's go. What's the next thing? We got to get into it. We got to do this. You're working on a script. Finish that script. Well, let's set a date to finish it. Okay.
This is you talking out loud to
absolutely.
yourself.
I'm going to finish that script before September 1st. Done and done. Got it. That is a lock. That is going to happen. And then I'm going to shop that around. And now I need to get out to California because when I got the information, I was in Kansas, and I got to get out to California because I got to go set up some pitch meetings because I'm going to write a sitcom. And then you
did all those things.
You start thinking, yeah, absolutely. You start thinking about it. And then I was lucky enough to audition for The Daily Show.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Yeah, and that was your big break.
I think that was because that allowed me to be myself more.
Yeah.
And gave me a nice platform, and John was wonderful to me, and I grew.
Yeah.
When
you kind of got that intense thing that you do, you found your comic kind of voice.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was nice because I wasn't living in fear. John was very supportive.
Uh-huh.
And if I failed, I didn't feel like I was going to be fired.
Right.
If I failed, and I felt bad, and I would ask myself, how do I not do that again? I never thought, how do I keep my job?
Right. Well, you knew it was just between you and John. I think that when you get into a machine like SNL, you're like sort of like, where did it come from? Why me?
Yeah.
What were the politics involved? And you can only speculate. But I think John was probably straight with you.
Yeah, he absolutely was.
And I forgot to ask you, did you play sports too?
I did.
And you were in a fraternity?
I was. I know.
No.
It's right down the line, man. It is.
Well, no, I just like there's like
I'm from Kansas. I'm a big white guy from Kansas who played football and was in a fraternity.
But you were never a bully.
I honestly never was.
Because I'm not
here's
getting
why.
that. Because like you know, I'm solving a big problem in my life right now. Because I just assume that you and what you represent outside the military service was the enemy.
Oh, I get it. You want to know why I get it?
Why?
Because I spent my
right there. You should say because you're a pussy.
And then just come over and just nuggy, just hardcore wedgie and nuggy.
You're a little baby.
No, I was a late bloomer, and when I say late, I didn't go through puberty until my sophomore year in high school.
Oh, really?
Late bloomer.
That's wild.
So.
And you were flying by your junior year of high school? Were you in a plane?
No. I was
first year of college.
It was my first year.
Making up for that time.
But it was the summer. It was the summer between my freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah.
When I hit puberty.
Yeah.
So my entire junior high existence, I was running for my life. Girls could beat me up. And they would try.
And you were laughed at in the locker room.
I was laughed at in the locker room because I had a bald eagle.
Yeah.
And we had mandatory shower days that I used to get sick on.
Yeah.
I would run in fear. I mean, all the guys were getting bigger than me, so all of a sudden my sports prowess I didn't have any. I literally was running for my life. And when I say that, I mean it. Because, you know, when I was in 9th grade, like, 7th graders that had gone through puberty that were like man-child, you know, they'd be like, "Hey, fuck you, Riggle," and I'd have to take it.
Oh,
I'd have to take it because I knew I couldn't do anything about it. And then I remember there was this girl who was this girl. She was a roughneck girl, kind of we called them druggers back then, and she was just kind of rough and just awful. And she would grab guys and like muscle them up against the wall and stuff. And I was afraid of her because I knew that, and it's the shame of, if she muscles me in any way, I have to take it or fight her. And if I fight her, there's a real good chance I could lose. And so I avoided her like the plague. And she would see me between lunch, you know, after lunch, we all had to wait before they would release us back to class.
Fear in your eyes.
And she'd be like, "Where's Riggle?" And she'd bark out things like that. And I would hide in the boys' restroom. I mean, like, I lived a life of fear for a long time. So when I finally hit puberty,
thank God,
and I finally started to grow and get some size or whatever, never once did it ever occur to me to be mean to anybody, you know? Like, I would never...
You just didn't want to feel the fear again.
I didn't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah.
I would never put that on anybody.
That's a good story.
Now, I did get in fights, but they were usually equally matched fights. You know what I mean?
Later? After puberty?
Yeah.
Like drunken fights or?
Drunken, you know.
You're one of those guys?
No, but no, not.
I'm sorry, I keep trying to put you in a box.
I know,
I apologize. Does that happen?
But I think everybody's had an experience where they've gotten drunk and have been like, "Man, what?" Blah, 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 and so it's like that. And
but you didn't go out seeking fights with.
Oh God, no. No.
But you can fight.
I mean, it's you don't want to, you know.
I know,
but
I get it.
Yeah, but I could defend myself, and so no, that's why I would never put that on people. And it's so funny that you mentioned that though, because I do notice a lot of times, a lot of the comedy writers that I work with have almost instantaneous. I got you sized up,
right?
I know who you are.
You're the enemy.
I know who you are, and I know what you're about.
Yeah.
And usually it takes...
Right. We've been fighting for centuries.
Right. And it takes about 6 months, and then the walls are down, and it's always works out fine. 6 months? Well, whatever.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time
no kidding.
to get them to relax.
But you don't try, you just be yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
And I sometimes been not bend over backwards, but go out of my way to let them know it's safe.
Yeah,
I'm not here to do anything other than make good comedy with you.
Yeah. And where was your first experience with that? With what show?
There were a couple guys.
Well, I mean, you did Human Giant with.
with Hugh, Will, and Shear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those are my bros.
Right.
I love those guys. We were on the same improv team for years. So
you're all pretty cocky. So where'd you come into contact with the group of writers?
Oh, okay, Daily Show. There you go.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah,
I mean.
Yeah,
those guys.
Who let the jock in?
Yeah, a lot of that. But at the same time, they're so wildly talented
Right.
that all I wanted to do was work with them. That's all. I just wanted to work with them. And we all did. Even, I mean, it all worked out. We all got along great, and we did work well together. So, but you can tell by the look in their eyes sometimes. They're like, hi.
Yeah.
Okay.
What you can do? Kick my ass?
Yeah.
You can kick
I
my
guess,
ass?
I guess that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't do anything. I really didn't. Please.
You just remind them of everything.
I think I do.
Of course.
I think I do remind them of bad times.
So it's just funny. You are like a general funny man.
Yeah,
You do
try.
you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, try.
Got the Funny or Die stuff. You got everything.
Well, and
going on.
stand up. Going back to stand up though, we'll jump back
full
there.
circle?
The full circle. When I was on the Daily Show, I shared an office with John Oliver. Okay,
I love him. Yeah.
For 3 years, we shared an
Yeah,
office.
he's very funny.
And we did nonstop bits the whole time. I mean, to the point where his office, we would sit this close as you and I are
Yeah.
right now, and I would pick up the phone and call him,
Yeah.
and pretend to be somebody, and he would play the bit with me we do this nonstop.
Right.
Well, eventually, and he would come down and see me do improv at the UCB. And I dragged him up a couple times and made him, and
Yeah.
he did it.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of him
Yeah.
because it's not his world.
Yeah.
But he did great because he's funny and he
He's
knows
great, yeah.
he knows a bit.
Yeah.
So then he put it back on me.
Oh, really?
He's like, you got to do stand up.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I don't know. He
Makes
goes,
me sweat.
Yeah,
And hate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes, tough. He goes, you want to be a comedian? You got to be a comedian.
Oh, good for him.
And he put it on me, and I kind of liked the challenge. So
Yeah.
I was like, all right, game on. So I just started going down the piano room, the slipper room, UCB hump nights, any place that would give me 5 minutes, and I'd get up and I would do it my way, which was storytelling.
Right.
And it felt so much better this time around. And maybe I had a little more confidence from being on stage at UCB. So just a stage
On
ability.
SNL, The Daily Show. Yeah, you probably have a little confidence.
Well, just a little more.
Yeah.
And so I did. I just went and did 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, tweak it, tweak it. And eventually I built a set. I'm 60 minutes, and now I go out and do stand up, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
And people come, they know you.
People come,
you
they
kill?
come. Yeah, I do pretty well. I mean, it
great.
works out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. I remember though, Lewis Black, when I was just starting out doing this,
Yeah.
Lewis would be outside of the Daily Show when he would come, and he'd be smoking a cigarette or whatever, and I'd pop out to see him because
You're like the anti-Lewis.
well, he was Lewis, and he's one of my idols. So
Yeah,
I'd be
sure.
like, anytime he was around, I'd go hit him up for a conversation or just be around him. I don't know.
He's a very sweet guy.
He is,
Yeah.
and so I went out one time and I said, "Hey, Lewis, I'm working on my stand-up, and he goes, "Oh, it's great, it's great." I go, "Yeah, I'm up to 30 minutes."
Yeah.
And he took a long drag and just looked at me. He goes, "You got 7." And he was totally right. I had probably 7 good minutes out of that 30, and I was like, "Well, that's classic."
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But so you tour? Do you usually tour by yourself or what?
Usually, every now and then, the Daily Show guys will get together.
That's right. Yeah, and do that.
Roy Albanese and John Oliver and myself and Wyatt.
J.R. Haviland or no?
JR, yeah. And we'll go out and we'll do some gigs.
Well, that's great, man. And what are you working on now?
I'm shooting a movie down in New Orleans.
Big part?
Decent part.
Yeah.
Pretty decent part. It's 21 Jump Street is the
They're
movie.
making the movie?
They're making the movie.
Okay.
And it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, man. Well, Rob, it was great talking to you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I've listened to your podcast for a long time, so it was an honor to be here.
Oh, that's very sweet. All right, well, I'm glad we did it.
All right, man.
Okay, that's our show, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. What a good guy. Good guy, funny guy, solid guy, grounded, knows who he is and where he is. Made some definite sacrifices. He was definitely self-sacrificing. And now he's still self-sacrificing. He's being funny. You can't underestimate the power of that. So go to WTFpod.com for all your WTF needs. Get an app. Get some of those premium episodes. Get some of the new shirts. Post some comments. Do whatever you want there. There's a lot of stuff, and, I'm on top of it. So get on the mailing list. I do that every week. Wow, how about some Just Coffee? Oh, I'm sweating here. Pow! Whoa! Did I just shit my pants? Yes, I did. And that's justcoffee.coop. That's it. Talk to you soon. Right? Okay.